Good level, good level, good level. Good morning. We're actually a couple of minutes early here. Good turnout for a frosty morning here. Appreciate it. Looking around, I think you all know me. First off, let's go give you back. There we go. As you know, for about 5 months now, we've been working on fleshing out plans for expanding the Sacred Settlement. We've had a development team working on that. Today, the team as such, I'll be probably doing most of the talking, but they're all here to talk when they feel like it. And so I'm going to have them stand up so you can see their faces here. You know, they've been very faithful in meeting and going over these things, and we've done a lot of work over the last few months. So what we're about here is to give you information that you need to make your decision on how to vote on a motion to expand our Sacred Settlement when we do our semi-annual meeting. This is what we're going to talk about today. It's a very minimal agenda because what I want to do is just pause whenever and stop for your questions and have a discussion. Because really, it's kind of hard to prepare for a meeting like this because it's a very broad subject. There's a lot of information going on. And I don't want to bore you with information you already know or that doesn't respond to your questions. So please feel free to interrupt with your questions whenever. So we're going to do just a very brief background. We're going to look at the motion that is likely to be considered on January 25th. It's in draft form. It needs to be approved by council first before it goes to the congregation. But we believe this is what it'll look like. And then we want to look at the key issues that were identified back in June when you voted tentatively to approve the expansion, but had some concerns. So we want to look at those issues. The background, I won't read this whole thing. This is a paragraph that was drafted for use in explaining to the world what's going on here. It's a very minimal thing. Looking around the room, I think pretty much everybody here has tracked the development of the settlement. You know how it came to be with Valerie and the bus and how we voted to make it permanent and how we voted to add that second home. So I won't go through all of that unless you have any questions about the evolution of the settlement to where it is today. So just stop and see, does anybody want to ask or add comments about how we got and what the background is? The motion, which will be presented to you on January 25th. Oh, Deb Court?
Proposed the motion.
Oh, excuse me, yes, proposed motion.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I appreciate that. Yes, the proposed motion and is to approve the addition of 3 houses to the Prince of Peace Sacred Settlement as financing permits. So that's the motion. You all understand where we're at with that. So what are the concerns? And what are the proposed solutions for staffing? We heard several concerns from the congregation. Maybe if you have some recollection of that, you'd like to volunteer what you heard those concerns to be, because we want to be fully responsive to your concerns.
The staff isn't overburdened by the addition of the 2 homes.
The staff isn't overburdened by the addition of the 2 homes. Well, the 3 homes, yeah. Yes, David.
Any sort of indication about what the city of Roseville thinks about this?
We have none. We are going on faith that the statute as it's written and the current licensing or whatever permits us to do this. When the vote is, if the congregation approves the expansion finally, our first effort will be to reach out to the city and make sure they understand our plans.
Shouldn't it be reversed? I
Uh,
doubt it, why bother them, or why get the congregation to vote if it isn't approved?
well, first of all, we have no reason to believe it won't be approved because of the way the statute and regulations are written. Secondly, until we have an approved plan, we don't know what to tell the city. So that's the rationale for that. It's kind of a moot point as to whether it happens now or 30 days from now. If they're gonna quash it, they're gonna quash it, and if they're not, they're not. So, any other comment on that? Let me just say they have no basis to quash it because the statute permits us to do this. Chris,
The size of the current community room, is that going to need to be expanded, a refrigerator added, or all that kind of stuff to add more people? I imagine the refrigerator is full with the 3 people we have, so adding 3 more families, the expansion of the community room, I guess, is one of the
yes,
concerns
those
that I
are
wondered about.
concerns. They are part of the ongoing planning. The planning is not complete on that, partly because we haven't been able to anticipate what our next neighbors might be and exactly what their needs would be. The other part of it is that we need to fully involve our current neighbors and in the process of deciding that. We believe that there is enough space to accommodate all of the common space needs of an expanded community. We will need to figure out how to use some of our other space differently to do that. And that planning process will be ongoing shortly after the congregational vote, if there is a vote to approve. Gene,
Yeah, I was just wondering, there are several issues that you're going to go over, and this
Yes.
is staffing.
this is Sam.
So concerns about staffing
Right.
right now, and then are we gonna hear the solutions? And then move on to your other issues too?
That's the plan, but I don't want to get overly
No,
rigid.
I mean,
about
I'm
it.
not
We'll just-
squelching questions here, but
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah,
That's the plan.
good.
So back to staffing, the main point is that our current staff, the way they have been operating and functioning with our community. Has been pushing them to the limit, and we have been taking steps to address that. The first step is that we are actively implementing a plan to add supported friends through a structured open table process. The open table is an organization nationally that has a model for bringing people around a particular person and helping them increase their social capital so they can solve their own life problems. Settled is partnering with the Open Table. We have a few of our members who have been through training. It's a very trained and structured process. We have tables around our current members. And the idea here is that where we used to say, well, we'll have supportive friends, we didn't have a structure for that. We had a lot of people, a lot of you were acting as supportive friends, but there were gaps and holes and it was inconsistent. And a lot of the people who wanted to be friends didn't know exactly how to go about it. So this is a structured process. The training has happened, the tables have been assigned. There'll be a kickoff meeting on January 11th to get those things going. And we will be doing this whether or not we were going to expand. Okay. Scott,
Are you able to say who the people are that are part of the open table process or not?
we know, I won't say today,
Okay.
partly because we're still forming relationships there. And I would rather have the people who are assigned to tables, let you know individually. You have questions that any of you that are on the tables, do you want to make that more public now, or? I think we'll hold that one for a little bit later on. We almost need a whole separate forum on what the open table project is all about.
Plus, Michael, the training, there's one more training session that will occur a week from today. That then finalizes, or shouldn't finalizes, but puts into motion the tables, the formality of the tables. All the members of the tables have been notified. The neighbors have been notified who's on that table, but like Michael said, those relationships are getting together because, you know, everybody's got to know who's on which table. And then there's a final training with everybody next Sunday at Mosaic. And at that point, it'll be much more public, like Michael said.
Okay, to repeat what Fred just said a little bit for the record, the full implementation of the tables is an ongoing process. The next step is on January 11th. There'll be another training and orientation meeting where the table members get together with their neighbor and begin the process. And it's a sit-down thing. They share a meal together. It's very much relationship based. The whole table concept is to bring relationships around a neighbor, and those relationships add social capital. I mean, you think of it, if you have something wrong with your car, what do? You call somebody that knows a mechanic. Say, is he good for this or whatever? All of us have these relationships to help us solve problems. Our people coming out of homelessness have many fewer of those. So part of this is to build social capital and relationships that give them more power in the world. And one important thing is that these tables are to be run by the neighbor. The table members basically work for the neighbor. The neighbor sets the agenda. The neighbor determines what their needs are. And then the table members see what can be done, how they can bring these services to help them. Now, how does that help with our staffing problem? It means, first of all, that there's much more relationship around our neighbor so that they don't rely on our staff for a lot of their contact and relationship. Now, still, our staff will still be friends. They'll still listen to them. They'll still talk to them. But our staff can then say, if one of our neighbors is talking about a problem getting a ride to someplace on a regular basis, then that neighbor, that staff person can say, you know, I understand that, but you know, isn't that something you could raise with your table? And let them, instead of our staff being involved in trying to help that neighbor figure out the solution to a problem, there's a group that will do that for them. So that helps our staff. And that applies to another problem we've had with staff, is that the after hours thing, the 24/7 nature of contact with them. When you have a relationship with somebody, you don't want to just put it on the clock all the time if it's a real relationship. But what are you going to do if something happens at 7 o'clock at night? You got nobody else to call. If the staff person is your main contact, that's been happening. That's been a problem for our staff. Well, this adds more people then that can be one of the problems that our table can figure out, is what do you do if something happens when nobody else is available? Deb?
And I think also the phone tree is still active as well,
Yes.
to alleviate those after hour calls.
Yes, absolutely. And just to point out that one of the things we've done in the interim is that members of our settlement stewardship team, Deb, Fred, myself, have been actively involved in that problem-solving process so that we relieve our staff of being stuck in the middle of trying to help people solve problems. So individual issues will be addressed by the tables. Community issues, such as how big a refrigerator do we need going forward, as an example, would be solved by the huddle, which is an old feature that was part of the model when we began. But it hasn't been working all that well because we didn't bring the right process to it. We're changing that so that the huddle will take care of community issues. Again, such as how do we share space? What kind of recreation opportunities do we have? How do we have fun? What are we going to do about community dinners? That sort of thing. Along with that, you might have some conflicts that are just tough. You know, there's some things that just, you know, the mix of people in that huddle just can't seem to get a resolution to some kind of problem. And what we've set up as a standby is that if that happens, the best choice would be to find a neutral mediator or someone to help listen to the problem outside of our community. That's just a good sound practice. That is to say, kind of like, well, I want to say family mediation, but it's kind of like that. You know, if you got a problem you can't solve at the dinner table, you might have to ask somebody with a little more experience at helping resolve problems to do it.
Michael,
Yes,
would you define huddle? Is it the same as tables?
no, the huddle is a regular meeting of all of our neighbors with our shepherds, and that's a concept that might be new to you. Yeah, the people that from Prince of Peace that are responsible for most of what goes on with the settlement will be an internal shepherd and an external shepherd. The internal shepherd works within the community to help solve management and organizational issues on an ongoing basis. Again, that person, that internal shepherd role is being redefined, expanded, and clarified so that we remove some of those organizational management tasks from our staff as well. Things like, for example, handling expenses for the settlement, handling the rent process, that sort of thing. There are pieces of that staff will continue to do because it's logical, but a lot of it will be pulled over into that internal shepherd. Gary,
Is a shepherd the same as the friend?
no.
No.
We're all friends, but the shepherd. Think of the shepherd as a leadership, and it's kind of a co-leadership under the settled model. We have an internal shepherd and external shepherd. Right now, the internal shepherd has been Alyssa. Alyssa's role is changing. As of the first of the year, we've backed her away from many of the responsibilities, including, for example, the huddle. Now, that's still a process that's ongoing because we still want Alyssa to bring her talents and her experience to the process where she thinks it fits her overall role within Prince of Peace. But we want to pull her away from the things that have been kind of submersing her in settlement as opposed to doing some other things, at least from time to time. Gary?
I have a question about the neutral facilitator.
Yeah.
How is that person chosen, and will it be a standing neutral facilitator or one have to be chosen for every issue?
We're figuring that out now. Right now, we have someone who has been active with the settled community, who is a pastor from Woodland Hills who has volunteered to help with that role initially. So we have identified somebody. He's a psychologist as well as a pastor, and believe we have the experience to do that. Easy.
Isn't Kristen's job being eliminated too, because, all right, with the settle, because she's awfully busy, and to have that responsibility, both girls, I think, are overwhelmed.
Well, all of the things I've said about how
They've been hired.
right, how we try to minimize her involvement with kind of the personal issues that can be resolved by the huddle and so forth. Yes, she has, and Kristen's very good about setting her boundaries. She'll be very good about saying, I think that's a table issue, or I think that's a huddle issue, and could we please talk about it later? Yes, Deb.
I think also when you think about Kristen, there are certain things that she needs to keep track of. Property usage, that's her job. Whether it's a settled property and they need to borrow this room or whatever, she's still going to coordinate that. She does take care of the rent and making sure that work assignments are known. And we have consulted with both Kristen and Alyssa as we've moved forward with each one of these changes in terms of ensuring that they feel okay with what remains with them versus what we're taking and putting back into the settled ink. So they're very involved with this process.
Okay, the next item on our proposed solutions is to improve the settlement stewardship team capacity to management settlement operations. The settlement stewardship team is the group that has been approving expenditures, looking at policy, dealing with problems that can't be resolved by the internal shepherd and the huddle. And it's been going okay, but there is an evolution of that concept of the stewardship team that Settle has brought about based on their experience over the past 4 or 5 years. And we're expanding that concept to make sure that we have the capacity to address all of the elements of the settled model. That is to say, how do we deal with the property piece? Managing, like maintenance of the buildings and so forth. That's a specific role on the stewardship team. How do we deal with the supportive friends concept? That is to say, is there somebody on the stewardship team that can help facilitate, volunteering within Prince of Peace and outside communities to be sure that we're coordinating our supportive friends effort? There's the whole question of the intentional neighbor. Sometimes we ignore it, but intentional neighbors will probably need a table as well. The Berries and whoever might come if we approve the expansion. And that person on the stewardship team is there to provide spiritual and social support to those people. So that they have a similar, because it's a challenging thing when you give up what we would call a regular life in society to come and live in a tiny home in support of a mission. That's a big ask. It's a big change of life. So we need more support for that. So there will be somebody on the stewardship team to look at that. Then we have the internal and external shepherds, as I mentioned, their roles. It's beyond the scope of this meeting to talk in detail about what those roles are. But the idea is that stewardship team will then be able to handle many more of the management tasks that have been either happening randomly or have been falling somewhat to staff in the past. Purposeful work, for example. Yes, Kristen can keep track of work assignments, but it's not her job to figure out what those should be and what to do if things go wrong and how to bring the resources into that. Is there training needed for a work assignment and so forth? That purposeful work person on the stewardship team will do that instead of Kristen. So that the stewardship team capacity to manage with the operation should be improved. Gary.
Is it appropriate to name who the stewardship team is right now?
Right now, it's Deb, Fred, me, Ricky Campbell from Settled.
Okay.
That's it for the stewardship team. So we would be adding 3 or 4 more people, possibly. We have to make sure we cover those functions. So we've got someone to handle purposeful work, supportive friends, etc. We're actively discerning and asking people in our group to discern whether or not they feel that this will be a role that they're called to. We'll move on to the financing. The total cost of the expansion will be somewhere between $190,000 and $230,000, depending on exactly what infrastructure and so forth we're going to bring to it. That funding is separate from the operating budget. There will be no increase in an ask to you to increase your tithe to Prince of Peace to achieve that financing goal. The sources of funding will be from grants, gifts, other communities of faith, individuals. Lastly, there are some Prince of Peace dedicated building funds which may be used. I'll get to that. That's a question for our property committee to decide and for our council to decide. But we do have some dedicated funds, as I understand it. Those will be projects that benefit both the settlement and Prince of Peace. The biggest one would be security system and new doors. We don't know where that's going. I don't know. Maybe somebody on property has a better idea, but that's basically where the Prince of Peace funds would come in. Gary.
I know that you know how to write grants. Are you the one who was going to take care of them?
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. And if we get into the actual budgeting, this is kind of small and it's detailed and it's a very preliminary proposed budget, but let me go through. Do I have a pointer on this sucker? Oops. That's not the pointer. This is the pointer. Let me look at your first line here. the two buildings would be for the new neighbors. They run about $35,000 a piece, total cost of $70,000. As of today, Settled has offered to contribute those. So that's a cost that Settled has. It's not a cost for Prince of Peace or for grants. The second piece here, that home, that's for the intentional neighbor. We're not sure exactly where that's coming from. Some of it might come from Settled. Many of the intentional neighbors in the model as it was done originally would contribute that themselves. In other words, they're giving up housing that they're paying for someplace. They're going to pay for their housing at the settlement. So until we know who our intentional neighbor might be and what their resources might be, we don't know exactly where that's coming from.
Why is there the difference in the price on those buildings?
Good point. That the difference in price is because we want we're anticipating that the intentional neighbor home might be to accommodate a couple or possibly a family. So it's a higher cost. The other thing is that at Mosaic, for example, one of the intentional neighbors added some amenities to the tiny home that weren't in the other models. They did so at their own expense. So for example, that might be, for example, if they wanted to build in a Wi-Fi system or something like that, or a big TV or whatever. It's their own money, basically. So that's why that 47,000 is higher than the 35. The next thing, electrical service. This is a wild guess right now. We have people who are negotiating with Excel to see what we can do for service installation. The plan is here they would install a new service to another property. It would not be coming off the Prince of Peace service. Excel in their initial estimate of it wanted us to meter every house in the place. People like Russ and our electrical contractor Matthew, who's been working on this, say that's ridiculous. We can just meter the whole settlement. We don't need to have individual meters. So those things need to be worked out. And Russ Stoley thinks that he can work with Excel to get that down quite a bit. He says they always want to gouge you coming in anyway. So that's a complete unknown, but that would be one of the first targets for getting grant or gift money, because not much can happen until we know that's going to be solved. Anchoring. This is estimated at about $3,000 per home. As you know, one of the requirements in the law is that these homes be solidly anchored to a piling. There's a cost to that. We think that's going to be about $9,000. Again, that's going to have to be one of the first grants sought, because nothing happens unless we know where that's coming from. Walkways, an estimate of $14,000. That's let's do that later kind of thing. We operated our settlement for quite a while without concrete walkways, and then we found a grant to do that, or a gift to do that. So that can be put off. It's not critical to the project going forward. Decks, that's a rough estimate. That 1,800, we think that we will find other congregations that will help us do that. It has happened in other ways, and even with our thing. For example, our chicken coop out here was built by Meeting House Ministries, and they kind of built that whole thing. So we think that we'll get gifts to do that. Similar to the skirting. By the time the snow flies, we want to do that. We think we can get gifts to do that. Exterior lighting, this could go either way, but what we're thinking is that there may be a lighting solution that helps us with our own parking lot and walkway lighting things that also accommodates our settlement. But at some point, again, if we have the funds in our dedicated accounts to do that, if it's a decision of the property committee and the council, they might do that. Otherwise, that goes over in the grants or gift side. Furnishings, we think we will find individuals or congregations that will help us come up with the funds to furnish the houses. One of the things we do with these homes is that they're not getting hand-me-downs. We put new furnishings, new bedding, new sheets, new, tableware, whatever, into these units. That cost is a rough guess. The security system, this is a real wild guess. We've got some estimates of Stephen just said it'll be more than that. Yeah. So again, that is on the table, not critical to the project going forward, but it could be. I put it in there because I think that there is an opportunity to get a grant for that.
Could I say a word about that? Some estimates, one estimate is in, but it's not, there's not certainty that it meets the needs. But when we talk security, we're talking a system for the doors to be locked. And for Kristen to be able to buzz people in and that sort of thing. Because we just feel a need for our staff not to be here alone. And that's got nothing to do with the community, but it has to do with the safety of our staff. But in order to do that, we need 2 doors with a vestibule over here. And we need to wire for security system. Some doors downstairs also need replacing. Doors are expensive. And so those are just, and that's been a project that's been looked at for probably 12 to 15 years, 20 years. Replacing doors over here, and the doors are worn, and it's just time for maintenance. So included in here is a price that is well on the low side if we add all the doors, but we didn't have an estimate when that was put together. So and there are going to be some meetings with contractor at the end of this month that hopefully will clarify some of those estimates and costs. So.
Yeah, and to repeat an important piece of it, this has been under consideration for a decade or more. Prince of Peace needs it. It's possible that we can pull in a bunch of grant money because of the addition of the settlement and the portion of that the settlement could bear. So it's an opportunity, but it's not critical at this point to the project moving forward. The next thing would be refrigeration. Somebody mentioned, do we have the refrigerator space? We don't. So there's a amount in there. We believe that we can raise that money through gifts. And cabinets, the same thing. Again, the same people that did the chicken coop may be willing to help with the cabinets. That would be a gift. That's the meeting house people. They're excellent cabinet people, and they may be able to help us with that. So, out of the total of that 229,000, about 28,000 of it, and if you pull off the security system, about 6,000 of it would come from Prince of Peace dedicated funds. Again, contingent upon it meeting the needs of Prince of Peace, not the settlement. Settled is contributing at least $70,000 worth of housing, and maybe more depending on how we fund the intentional neighbor. We expect to receive a significant amount of gifts. I'm optimistic about that. Why? We've had things in the past year. We just had somebody randomly look at a YouTube video about us and write to us and give us $500 just because of our presence in the world. And we have things like soon the ELCA Church, the World Church, will be posting our experience on a new a site that they have to talk about how churches use their property. And that will expand the reach of our story. We have not yet begun to tell our story to the community that we know exists around us. They know that we've been thinking about expansion, but we haven't pulled the trigger. We pulled the trigger on, January 25th. Almost immediately, we will be celebrating that and asking for involvement from other communities of faith. And I expect the response will be good. This is still something that people want us to hear about. When we say come and see, they want to come and see. So I'm optimistic about that, but there are no guarantees. Same with the grant money. Yes, Gary.
Just one thing you don't have on here is liability insurance. Is that something that's already been taken care of? Are they on our liability plan here?
Well, let me, one of the limitations of this budget, this is the capital budget.
Okay.
This does not talk about operations.
Okay.
And the detail on operations is a little harder to sniff out. And frankly, our staff have been too involved, and Kristen's been on leave and so forth. So this is a Karen, Kristen, me, Deb, everybody putting their noodles together to figure out what the actual operational cost will be. But Deb has something to say about that.
With the insurance, one of the things we did last fall, because we went through renewal, was we asked them whether there was any issues if we expanded, how that would affect our insurance. And basically Church Mutual, who provides our insurance, says it's negligible because of our history. So, we were expecting thousands in increase, and I think the total increase for all liability was probably under 1,000. So this is good news. That was really good news for me.
Just
That was with the expansion?
It was predicated upon expansion.
You skipped over laundry. Is that?
the
laundry
laundry's
that's already been done?
Done and done.
Yeah, okay.
By gift.
Yeah.
Yes, very important point. Talk about gifts. And, we expect that there will be people lined up to give more for things. Yes.
Do you want to talk about the Karen and I got, I don't know if you guys remember, oh my gosh, what was their last name? Taragawas. Oh, sorry. A good example, the Taragawas, I don't remember, anybody here remember them? Yeah. They moved to Arizona a number of years ago, but has always followed Prince of Peace. Saw the article and some of the stuff that we've been doing and said, you know what? This makes sense to us. It's now part of their estate planning. And their designated charitable gift contributions on an ongoing basis. This is the kind of thing we're going to be looking for. That's it.
Thank you.
Michael can speak to this better, but I know there are also churches in the area that are very supportive. They don't have land. And so they're supportive and will financially help support us with our use of our land.
That kind of wraps the formal part of the presentation. David.
Just a comment on the doors, if you leave, you're using that exit, take a look at the seam between the doors, you're gonna see light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something about there are contingent kind of liabilities that could come up and really knock us off our course. One of them, and I don't expect the city to nix the expansion as such, but there is still a possibility that they'll come in here and say, wait a minute, you're using this building for something other than what it was intended for. And because you've changed the use, you now have to install fire suppression. That's the old issue we've been through with the daycare and everything. I just want you to be aware that that could happen. I don't think it will happen, but it's a possible liability that would stall us completely. Another possibility, again, Deb, so far we've had favorable responses from Church Mutual on the insurance. Over the past couple of years, some other settlements have had trouble getting insurance. And they have turned to Church Mutual. And Church Mutual is looking at, again, at their underwriting policies with respect to those other settlements. And so it's possible that Church Mutual will change their underwriting rules and either decline to insure us or raise the rates exorbitantly. Again, based on our contacts so far, we think that's unlikely, but the congregation should be aware there's a possibility.
I have a question. I haven't read the leases or anything like that, and there's a lot of things that I am on one of the table, but and I would like to read some of the stuff that we have already for that, in preparation for that, but things that are on an operating basis, is there an ability to adjust the rent moderately to cover some of that, or the rent that the neighbors are paying?
Could the rents be adjusted? Policy matter that the stewardship team can look at. The assumption and what we stated the congregation initially was that the rents would cover the marginal costs, the utilities costs involved in operating the. Now, again, one of the costs that's buried in here from an operating perspective is if we allow rent credits for work that's happening that benefits Prince of Peace, that does reduce the cash that comes into that account to cover utilities. So in a sense, that is an expense to Prince of Peace. Again, I don't know what the dimensions of that are because we haven't gone into the to the operating data so far. But that's something that the stewardship team will figure out and report back to you. So it's possible that there's a hidden cost there that we haven't fully articulated.
Is that gonna be figured out by the end of the month?
Can be figured out by the end of the month. Let me put it this way. All of the comments that you've made so far, we'll be taking a look at what you said. We've got a recording so we can take a transcript of it. And those questions that we don't think have been adequately answered, we will try to pull together responses by the semi-annual meeting.
Part of the issue we're gonna have with electricity is it's 1 meter right now, all of Prince of Peace. To sort out what belongs to the 3 houses, I'm not sure how we get there.
Same with water.
Same with water.
Easy.
What I have a comment and a question. One, that's a lot of money for helping 2 people.
That's a lot of money for helping 2 people.
Could that kind of money help a whole lot more people in another way?
Well, I would say that when our story is told nationally, and when you see other congregations doing this, if every congregation in the state of Minnesota that did this, the impact on chronic homelessness would be significant. So it's not the 2 people that we're helping. It's many, many, many more potentially. It's a mission. Stephen.
As I've been out talking to people, and they've been asking about what I do, and I tell them where I'm presently serving, and I often say, you may have read an article about the tiny homes church, and they're like, oh yeah, almost to a person. People know about it, and one of the great things about this happening during the interim time is that my involvement in this as the pastor's been not that much, very, very little. If you had a settled pastor here, I would think that she or he would be much more operationally involved, and the opportunity that this gives about settling all of these apart from the pastor is that once you bring your pastor in, she will probably serve mostly as an evangelist for the cause in the wider community than operationally here at Prince of Peace. And what that means is that this is a story that will be told and told and told on a much wider basis. So it really is about much more than impacting 2 people. The other thing that I want to say, and I've mentioned this before, it took me about 3 weeks of being here to realize that this was partly about dealing with, quote, the homeless issue. And the larger part is about redefining community and what it means for us to be neighbors. And that will also have a much bigger impact than simply giving money to house people, because any agency can house people, but only the church can community people, if that's a phrase that makes sense. So it's much bigger than just housing a couple folks. It's a story that really will have ripples going out.
Fred?
But it's also important to remember where this all started, okay? The people that we're helping here are chronically homeless. Okay, and understand that the chronically homeless use 80% of all the money that nationally we give to homelessness is taken up by this 20%. 20% of the homeless population is categorically defined as chronic. Ours is chronic, so it's 80%. The other thing to understand is this: the chronically homeless go into Chapter 8 housing. Okay, anybody want to guess what we as taxpayers are paying for every studio unit? $385,000 for one unit. Okay, and that number is about 5 years old.
Plus
So-
which, as you might know, all the funds for public housing have contracted, so it just simply isn't out there.
Yeah, so just, it looks like a big number, but
Oh, I thought you were. I would agree, $229,000 or even 300,000 is a lot of money. But this is capital. This money is going to last for 10, 20 years. You divide that by 20, it doesn't approach what it would take to house them. So I understand your point, Maisie, but I think that, you're looking at that as this is 1 year expense and it's 30, 50, I don't know.
Yeah, and the part that Pastor Steve mentioned about changing the way we look at church is something I've said before, and I think is pretty important. It's in my personal life involvement. This has given me new connection with my faith. Not that I was disconnected before, but because of what I've been working with and because of my role here, every morning I wake up and ask for God's guidance with this. And every morning I have to know that I will be reaching out and being in relationship with people who have been and maybe still be the least of these. And that's true of many of you in this room. And one of the things that the church in suburban white America doesn't get much is to rub shoulders with the people who really are in need. And that is a spiritual benefit. It's a humbling experience. And I'm so grateful that so many of you at Prince of Peace have joined in that and are willing to do that. And you may not feel it's a transformation, but like our mission said when we created it, 6 or 7 years ago, we seek a transformative role with God and our neighbors. And I think that's happening for me. Now, again, I got kind of tunnel vision on this because I've been so involved. But Peter.
So we're looking at expanding from 3 to 6 houses. How are we doing on that question in general? I mean, we just looked at the money side of that. Are we thinking has 3 been a good number? Is 6 gonna be better? And how about in the longer term? Are we gonna maybe want more than 6?
Well, to give you when we first looked at this, we considered how much that expansion would be, and the 6 is kind of determined by the statute. We have to maintain a certain ratio of intentional neighbors to invited neighbors. We would have to expand by at least 2, and the recommendation then was to do it one more and do to 3, which is the limit of what we can do without adding another intentional neighbor. And so that's how that 6 got set. The judgment of the people who were on the team originally was that may be the limit for us. That given the size of our church and, what our capacity to meet the relationship needs and so forth, we may not be able to go beyond that. That's still, the thinking. That's up for consideration if everything goes well and there's a sense within the community, not just certain people, but within the community that we can do more, maybe we will. But for now, that would be it. The decision to go from 3 to 6, 3 seems to be not optimal because you don't have that much of a community. You have more like a nuclear family almost when you get down to that number of people. Expanded, yeah. So it really we think that going to 6 will improve the community dynamics quite a bit. It also I don't know, it's just we can do more, we should do more. Other questions?
Michael, I'm just a bit, remind me, 2 homes and 1 intentional.
Right.
So those are the 3 we're talking about.
Correct.
And would an increase in that would not be possible? Is that what the committee's considering right now? More than that?
Well, yes.
Okay.
A couple of things. First of all,
Total of 6 buildings out there on our
right,
property.
6 buildings. We've got space to go more. We don't think we could go more without significant improvements to infrastructure. We think that, for example, our shower facilities, our common spaces we talked about can handle another 3, but we don't think we could go beyond that without significant improvements. For example, building a utility house out there or putting an addition up, it would be a lot.
Thank you.
I'm going to use this opportunity for silence to ask, excuse me.
One thing,
Okay.
for those of you who are on the development team, council says thank you. First and foremost. Secondly, these people have operated in a God-given sense to answer all of the questions we have, to allow us to consider how God is calling us into being in the future. And I really appreciate their thoughtfulness, the work they've done. Michael is stewarding this. I mean, the passion that these people have brought, I'm overawed by, and I don't get overawed all that. And so my request, council is going to consider this motion in 2 weeks to expand by 3 units as financing permits. It's clean, it's clear. That's what I'm going to ask for as a motion. My discussions with council is it will pass, which means it's going to come to you. Prayerfully consider this as what God calls us to. Now I'm going to give you the caveat. There's always a caveat. This doesn't mean we stop. Yes or no doesn't mean we stop. But what it means is we continue to seek what God is calling us to do. I think their passion speaks for who we are as a congregation. That's why I just wanted to say thank you so much for all that you've done. Really appreciate it.
And now I'm going to ask the pastor on our team to close us with some prayer.
Hey, Tony.
People other than pastors can pray.
Even the grand girls now, though, when we say, who's gonna give thanks, and we ask the oldest one, who's gonna give thanks, she always points at Steve.
Let us pray. Gracious God, you call us to come and see. You call us to follow you. We ask, oh God, that we may be ever open, ever willing to listen, to share, to work together with honor and respect, with thanksgiving. I thank you for your grace that has led us. And we pray that you will encourage us and give us wisdom. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
Oh, yeah.